Coming back! Children ran. Women left their cooking fires. Men rushed to the shore. The boats returned overflowing with fish, more than anyone had seen in months. Huge tilapia, silver catfish, even giant freshwater prawns. The village erupted in joy. In the heart of Ghana, where the golden sun kissed the earth and the rivers whispered ancient songs, there lived a young woman named Amma. Amma was known in her village for one special thing. She loved the rain. While others rushed indoors when the clouds gathered, Amma would run outside with a wide smile, holding out old clay pots, calabashes, and buckets, collecting every drop like it was treasure from heaven. "Why do you love the rain so much?" the village children would ask, laughing as they danced around her. Amma would smile softly and say, "Because every drop carries a blessing." Her village, tucked beside the peaceful banks of the Volta River, was beautiful, but often struggled during the dry season. The crops would thirst, the fish would disappear, and many families worried about tomorrow. But Amma believed nature always left clues for those willing to listen. Every morning before sunrise, she would take her tiny wooden canoe onto the river. With her paddle in hand and hope in her heart, she sailed across the calm waters, watching birds fly low and the breeze move across the surface. To others, it was just a river. To Amma, it was a teacher. One morning, as the mist floated gently above the water, Amma noticed something unusual. Near the reeds by the riverbank, the fish were jumping higher than usual. She leaned forward. Splash! Another one, then another. Her eyes widened. "This means the deeper waters are changing," she whispered. She quickly paddled home. At the village market, fishermen were preparing for the day. "Pull harder!" one shouted. "It's a big one!" Fresh tilapia and catfish filled the air with the smell of the river. Amma ran to old Kofi, the village's most respected fisherman. "Papa Kofi," she said, slightly out of breath, "the fish are moving near the eastern reeds. The waters are shifting. Today, that's where you must cast your nets." The old fisherman raised an eyebrow. "And how do you know this, child?" Amma smiled. "The river told me." Some laughed. Others shook their heads. But Papa Kofi studied her face and nodded. "Then we will trust the river." That day, the fishermen followed Amma's advice. Hours later, the village heard shouting from the river. "They're coming back!" Children ran. Women left their cooking fires. Men rushed to the shore. The boats returned overflowing with fish, more than anyone had seen in months. Huge tilapia, silver catfish, even giant freshwater prawns. The village erupted in joy. Amma stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, smiling as the people celebrated. Papa Kofi walked toward her, holding the biggest fish of the day. He lifted it high and laughed. Today the river spoke through Amma. From that day forward, people listened differently. They noticed how Amma watched the skies, how she studied the winds, how she treated the earth with respect. She taught the children how to collect rainwater. She showed farmers when to plant. She helped fishermen understand the river's rhythm, and slowly the village changed. The dry seasons became less fearful. The harvests grew stronger. Hope returned. One evening, as soft rain began to fall, Amma stood outside once again, holding her clay pot beneath the sky. A little girl beside her asked, "Amma, do you still think every drop carries a blessing?" Amma looked at the clouds, smiling as rain touched her face. "Yes," she said gently, "because sometimes the smallest drops can change an entire life." And under the African sky, with the river singing nearby and the rain blessing the earth, Amma kept collecting treasure. One drop at a time. In a quiet village nestled between the rolling green hills of Rwanda, where the mornings were wrapped in soft mist and the evenings hummed with crickets, there lived a young woman named Amina. Amina's home was small, a clay house with a thatched roof at the edge of the village. Behind it grew a modest garden of beans, cassava, and sweet potatoes. Life had not been easy for her. She had lost her parents years before and now lived alone. But Amina was not truly alone. She had Zuri. Zuri was a small hen with golden brown feathers that shimmered under the sun. She had bright, curious eyes and a soft cluck that sounded almost like laughter. Wherever Amina went, Zuri followed. Through the garden, along the dusty paths, even to the stream where Amina fetched water. The villagers often smiled when they saw them together. "Look," they would say, "Amina and her little companion." Every morning as the sun rose gently over the hills, Zuri would lay one warm egg. Amina would pick it up carefully, holding it like something precious. She would smile softly and whisper, "Thank you, my dear. One is enough for today." She would cook the egg, eat part of it for breakfast, and save the rest for the evening. It wasn't much, but it was enough. And somehow, her heart felt full. Days passed peacefully, until one morning, something changed. Zuri laid 2 eggs. Amina blinked in surprise. "2?" she said quietly. "Ah, what a blessing." She cooked 1 egg as usual. The second she took to the small village market. She sold it for just enough to buy a little maize flour. The next day, Zuri laid 2 eggs again, and again. Soon, the villagers began to notice. "You should sell both eggs," one man advised. "You could earn more money," said another. "If you feed her better, maybe she'll lay even more," someone else added. "Think bigger, Amina. You could have many hens. Build a business." Amina listened, smiling gently. But she simply said, "1 for me, and 1 to share. That is enough." Instead of selling all the eggs, she began giving them away. To a mother who struggled to feed her children. To tired school kids walking home hungry. To neighbors who needed a little help but were too shy to ask. Sometimes she would leave eggs quietly at someone's doorstep and walk away before they could see her. People began to call her the kind girl with the golden hen. Then the rains came. Heavy rains, stronger than anyone had seen in years. The river swelled, crops were destroyed, roads turned to mud. Hunger began to creep into the village. Many families struggled, but through it all, Zuri continued to lay 2 eggs every morning. Amina had been preparing. She had not wasted what she had been given. She boiled eggs, preserved them, and shared them quietly, day after day, with those who needed them most. No noise, no praise, just kindness. One evening, as the rain finally softened, a group of villagers gathered outside her home. "Amina," one of them asked, "why didn't you try to make more money when you had the chance?" Another added, "You could have been rich by now." Amina looked at them, her eyes calm and warm. She knelt beside Zuri, gently stroking her feathers, and said, "Because true wealth is not in having more. It is in knowing what is enough." She paused, then continued softly, "I kept what I needed. The rest was never really mine to keep." Zuri clucked gently and nestled close to her feet, as if she understood every word. And in that quiet moment, something changed in the hearts of those who stood there. They realized happiness is not about collecting more. It is about appreciating what we already have and choosing to share it with love. Because when we lift others, we rise together. And in kindness, we become truly rich. Have you ever sat in a place that used to feel like home? And suddenly it didn't anymore? Not because the walls changed, not because the world ended, but because the people who made it feel alive were no longer there. If you've ever felt that kind of silence, stay with me. This story is different, and somewhere inside it, you might find yourself. There is a place in Tanzania called Kijani Plains. It's not a place people travel to. It's a place people are born into, grow in, and often never leave. In that village lived a man named Tendai. Tendai was not the kind of man people gathered around for entertainment. He didn't talk much, didn't laugh loudly, didn't try to stand out. If anything, he blended into the background, but he had a quiet way of being present. He worked with his hands, fixing things, carrying loads, helping where needed. Nothing about his life looked special from the outside, but there was a time when his world felt full. His wife, Amara, brought warmth into their home without trying. She didn't need to say much either. The way she moved, the way she hummed while cooking, the way she sat beside him in the evenings, it was enough. They didn't have children, they didn't have wealth, but they had rhythm. A simple, steady life that made sense. Until one year, it stopped making sense. The rains came late that season. Crops struggled. The air felt dry, uneasy. And then Amara fell sick. It wasn't sudden. It was slow. The kind of sickness that makes you hope at first, and then slowly takes that hope away. Tendai tried everything he knew. Local remedies, long walks to find help, quiet prayers he barely knew how to form. But nothing changed. One night, and as the wind moved softly outside, Amara's breathing faded, and just like that, she was gone. There are moments in life that divide everything into before and after. That was Tendai's moment. After the burial, people came around. Voices filled the compound. Hands touched his shoulders. Words were spoken. But after a few days, it all disappeared. The footsteps stopped. The voices faded. The days became long and empty. Tendai didn't cry loudly. He didn't break down in front of anyone. He just became quiet. A different kind of quiet. He stopped sitting outside in the evenings, stopped going where people gathered. Even his work slowed down, not because he was lazy, but because nothing inside him was pushing him forward anymore. One night, sitting alone in the dark, he spoke out loud, not even sure why. God, if you are still there, why does it feel like you removed everything that mattered? No answer came, but the question stayed. Days turned into months, and something strange began to happen. Not outside, inside. Tendai started noticing things he had ignored before. The sound of the wind moving through dry grass. The way mornings arrived quietly before the sun appeared. The small struggles of people he passed without thinking. He didn't suddenly feel happy, but he started paying attention. One afternoon, while walking back from the fields, he saw a boy struggling to lift a heavy container of water. Tendai paused. For a moment, he almost kept walking. Then he turned back, lifted the container without saying a word, and carried it to the boy's home. No conversation, no thank you, just action. And then he left. A few days later, he fixed a broken fence for an old man who couldn't do it himself. Another day, he helped patch a leaking roof before the rain returned. He didn't announce any of it. He didn't plan to become helpful. It just started happening, not because he felt strong, but because doing nothing felt heavier. Years passed. People began to notice him again, but differently this time. Not as a man who had everything together, but as someone who showed up quietly without needing recognition. Tendai never spoke about his loss, but somehow people felt understood around him. Then one season, everything shifted again. Tendai fell ill. This time, his body refused to cooperate. He couldn't walk far, couldn't work, couldn't even cook for himself. And as he lay there staring at the same ceiling day after day, an old fear returned, and the same question, in a different form. Now what? The first day, no one came. The second day, someone knocked. It was the boy whose water he once carried, now older, standing awkwardly at the door with food in his hands. The next day, another person came. Then another. And then more. Within a week, the house that had been silent for years was no longer quiet. People filled the space. Someone swept his compound. Someone repaired his door. Someone stayed just to sit with him. No announcements were made. No plans were organized. It just happened. Tendai watched it all, confused. He hadn't asked for help. He hadn't even expected it. One evening, as he sat propped against the wall, he said softly, "I thought I was alone all these years." An old man sitting nearby shook his head. "You weren't alone. You were planting things you couldn't see." That night, for the first time in a long time, Tendai didn't feel empty. Not because everything was fixed, but because something finally made sense. When he recovered, he didn't go back to the life he had before, because he understood now. That season of losing, that silence, that loneliness, it wasn't the end of his life. It was the beginning of a different kind of purpose. Years later, when Tendai passed peacefully, people came from across Kijani Plains, not because they were told to, but because in one way or another their lives had been touched by a man who once thought he had nothing left to give. So hear this carefully. Sometimes life removes the noise, not to punish you, but to reveal something deeper. Sometimes the people you lose are not replaced in the same way, but what grows in their absence can reach further than you ever imagined. Loneliness can feel like an ending, but sometimes it's just the space where something new begins. If you are in that space right now, don't rush to fill it. Don't assume it means something is wrong with you. You may not see it yet, but something is being built in you. Quietly, patiently. Something that one day will reach people in ways you never expected.